Good evening, everyone. Is I audible, sir?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Okay. So, I, Dr. Ramkishan Bhise, I welcome you all in the ELTAI webinar 109. So, the webinar is on the art of reflective teaching and mastering your craft. The resource person we have Beena, Kulangara ma'am, and moderator for today's session is Vishal Varia. Okay. Before going to start, I just want to start with the ELTAI video. So you will come to know about the ELTAI. Just a minute.
Can I try from my end, sir?
So just one.
Just a minute, sir.
It's becoming audio only. Okay, thank you, Kevin, for the video. So, before going to start, I just want to tell you about the initiatives by the ELTAI. ELTAI has started the India Read Movements. And the objective of this India Read Movements is to promote the joy of reading and enables the learner to become a lifelong readers. So it is ELTA is the only organization who has started this reading movement in India. So I request everyone to be a part of it, start reading movement in your college. All the details are available on the ELTA website. Please go through it. So next, I'll not take your much of time. I'll just introduce the moderator for the today's session. We have Dr. Vishal Varia, who is a highly accomplished educator and edutech leader with a wealth of experience in education sector, and he is currently serving the director of K2 School, that is Rosary School, where he has been instrumental in transforming the school's teaching and learning experience through the integration of technology. Dr. Varia is a Google certified trainer and a leader of Google Educator Group Ahmedabad, which demonstrate his expertise in the use of technology in education. So he has a PhD in education with a focus on the topic teacher professionalism. So his research in this area has contributed significantly to the development of education sector. So in addition to his academic achievement, Dr. Varia is also a down-to-earth person who is eager to work cooperatively with the colleagues. So he has authored multiple research papers and articles in different journals, newspaper, and tabloids. So this is a short information about the Dr. Vishal Varia. He is the moderator for today's session. Now I will hand over this session to Dr. Vishal Varia. Sir, please, you can proceed.
Thank you, Ram sir.
Yes.
It's indeed an honor to moderate a session with the ELTAI group, and it's more an honor to introduce to the audience our speaker of the day, that is Mrs. Beena Kulangara. She is an English lecturer from the University of Technology and Applied Sciences, Nizwa, Sultanate of Oman. She is presently from Oman. Her academic credentials include a B.Ed and a Master's in English Language and Literature. She is a certified teacher with both TEFL and CELTA. She earned her postgraduate certificate in higher education and professional practice from Coventry University in the UK. She is adept at providing lectures, tutoring, e-learning, and teaching both English as a second language and as a foreign language. She has proven her competence in numerous significant roles outside the classroom, such as those of a foundation program course coordinator, a placement exam coordinator, a timetable coordinator, an exam officer, and so on. She has attended several international conferences. She has participated in the ELT forums conducted by UTAS Nizwa and presented her papers on varied topics such as paperless classroom, a myth or reality, unravel the aptitudes of mixed ability classes, how to use Google Classroom, how to use Google Meet for online teaching, how to use MS Teams for online teaching, and so on. She chaired the section on contemporary approaches to empower smart future through digitalization that was held at Shakti Institute of Technology and Management Studies, Pollachi on 24th and 25th of November 2022. Today she is going to present to us and share with us her knowledge on reflective practices in education. And we are equally honored to have her and to learn from her today. Ma'am, over to you. You have to unmute yourself, ma'am.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah. So I would request the audience that while the session is ongoing, if you have any kind of questions or doubts or would like to comment something, please put it up on the chat. We will take up the comments at the end. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Ma'am, you wish to share your screen?
Are you able to view my screen, sir?
Not yet, ma'am.
Can you see my screen now?
It shows that the sharing is on, but we are yet to see the content.
Okay.
Yes, now it is visible.
Okay, thank you.
Your screen is visible, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon and good evening, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar on the art of reflective teaching, mastering your craft. As educators, we all strive to improve our teaching practices and enhance student learning outcomes. But have you ever stopped to think how you can master your craft as a teacher? That's where reflective teaching comes in. Reflective teaching is a powerful practice that can help you become a more effective and confident teacher and ultimately lead to better outcomes for your students. In this webinar, we'll explore what reflective teaching is, why it's important, how you can engage in reflective practice in creative and effective ways. I'll introduce you to the characteristics of reflective teaching, the benefits it can bring for both teachers and students, the different reflective cycles and models you can use to guide your practice. And I'm thrilled to have you all here today. And I'm confident that by the end of this webinar, you'll be equipped with the tools and knowledge to start mastering your craft through reflective teaching. So let's start. In this session, we will be exploring the key principles and practices of reflective teaching with the following objectives in mind. To define and explain reflective teaching and how it can make you a more effective and confident teacher. To share some creative ways to engage in reflective practice. To introduce the characteristics of reflective teaching. To briefly describe the benefits of reflective teaching for students, teachers, and reflective learning for students, to explain the major role played by reflection and openness to feedback, to glimpse through the research made in the area of reflective teaching, to throw light on reflective cycle, Kolb's experiential learning cycle, Gibbs learning cycle, and a recap of all the three, to distinguish the three types of reflection in detail, to encourage others to engage in reflective practice, and finally, to explore the features and advantages of reflective teaching for you and your students. Now, let's start with what is reflective teaching. Reflective teaching is a methodology where teachers look and think over their teaching practices and then evaluate how they taught and what practice they can consider that might improvise or alter it for enhanced learning outcomes. Actually, it is a personal tool to observe and evaluate teachers' behavior in the classroom. It is more than summarizing what happened in the classroom, and it also supports the development and maintenance of professional expertise. Now let us look at the definitions of reflective teaching. Reflective teaching can be defined as a process of self-observation and self-evaluation, as Freiberg and Discol coins it, which involves thinking about what you do, why you do it, and whether it works. It is a practice that requires teachers to regularly reflect on their teaching practices and experiences in order to improve their effectiveness and support student learning. Donald Short, a learning theorist on reflective practice, describes it as the capacity to reflect on action so as to engage in a process of continuous learning. And Brookfield defined reflective teaching as the process of systematically examining and interpreting our teaching experiences in order to make them more effective and appropriate for our learners. And lastly, Jack Richards described it as reflection or critical reflection, which refers to an activity or a process in which an experience is recalled, considered, and evaluated, usually in relation to a broader purpose. It is a response to past experience and involves conscious recall and examination of the experience as a basis for evaluation and decision making, and as a source for planning and action. Now, let us move on to how can reflective teaching make you a more effective and confident teacher. Reflective teaching can make you a more confident and effective teacher by allowing you to examine and evaluate your teaching practices, learn from your experiences, and adjust and improve your instructions. Here are some ways reflective teaching can help you to become a more effective and confident teacher. As you can see, it increases self-awareness. Through reflective teaching, teachers become more aware of their own teaching practices, including their strengths and weaknesses. They can identify their areas for improvement, and this can lead to more intentional teaching practices and a deeper understanding of their students' learning needs. Number two, it improves critical thinking skills. Reflective teaching encourages teachers to critically think about their teaching practices and question assumptions, leading to a deeper understanding of improving their teaching methods. Number three, enhances decision-making abilities. By regularly reflecting on the teaching practices, teachers can make more informed decisions about how to approach lesson planning, classroom management, and assessment. The fourth point is it helps or increase job satisfaction and confidence. Reflective teaching, as you know, can help teachers feel more confident by leading to increased job satisfaction, a stronger sense of fulfillment in their role. And finally, better student engagement can be received and learning outcomes can be achieved when you practice reflective teaching in your classes, and it results in increased student engagement and improved learning outcomes. Overall, reflective teaching can have a profound impact on a teacher's professional development and their ability to effectively support student learning. By engaging in regular reflective practice, teachers can continue to grow and refine their teaching practices, ultimately benefiting themselves and their students. Now, after every session, in order to engage in reflective practice, these are the points that comes to our mind. Looking back to move forward, like the thoughts that pop up in our mind are, what did I do in my class? Why did I do that in my class today? How would it work? What was the result? Will I change anything based on my observations? If yes, what can I do better next time and how? So, one notable way to engage in reflective practice is to ask guiding questions. For example, how did I feel when the event was happening, like when a lesson was going on? What were my goals or my learning outcomes? What were the main things that I did? What went well? What went badly? What should I do the same way next time? And what should I do differently next time? When you answer these guiding questions, you'll be able to get an answer. And this can be reflected in various forms. You can create a detailed narrative of a recent event, sketch a diagram and analyze your thoughts, or you can write it in the form of a reflection. It can be written consistently, and when you go through it, you can make amendments in your lesson planning, class management, and your teaching as a whole. Now, let us look at the characteristics of reflective teaching. There are a few characteristics that appear throughout all types of reflective practices. They help us to understand the key traits and behaviors associated with reflective teaching. Reflective teaching is characterized by key qualities. Reflective teaching indicates what happens in the classroom, why it happens, and how can it be improved. If you are practicing reflective teaching, it is rare that you will teach the same lesson again in the exact same way, because reflective teaching challenges you. You will need to critique yourself and go to your lesson plans. Although many teachers write their reflections down, not all reflective teaching needs to be written. Many teachers instead choose to speak about their lessons to a colleague or a mentor or a critical friend who would give you better ideas or who would help you to amend your plans. Reflective teaching is collaborative, often involving a head teacher or a colleague. Reflecting on and speaking about how your lessons go often leads to helpful insights. Now, the key characteristics of reflective teaching include open-mindedness. Reflective teachers are open-minded and willing to consider new ideas and perspectives. They are not afraid to challenge their own assumptions and beliefs, and they actively seek out opportunities to learn for further learning and growth. For example, a reflective teacher might be willing to try out new teaching strategies or approaches in her classroom based on the feedback from her students or from her colleagues, rather than simply sticking to what has worked in the past. The second point here is self-awareness. Reflective teachers are highly self-aware and have a deep understanding of their own teaching practices and how they impact student learning. They can identify their own strengths and weaknesses as a teacher and are constantly striving to improve their skills and knowledge. For example, a reflective teacher might regularly seek feedback from students, colleagues, mentors, or a critical friend to get a better understanding of their own teaching practices and how they can be improved. Commitment to ongoing learning. Reflective teachers are committed to ongoing learning and professional development, recognizing that teaching is a constantly evolving field. They are always seeking out new knowledge and skills and are willing to take risks and try new approaches to improve their teaching practices. For example, a reflective teacher might attend professional development workshops, read educational research, or participate in online communities of practice in order to stay up to date with the latest teaching strategies and best practices. A science teacher or an English teacher or be it a math teacher, he or she will strive hard to make amendments in her teaching practices by keeping the practices up to date so that she will not feel that she has missed out something in her career. Now, let us look at the benefits of reflective teaching for teachers. Number one, improves teaching quality. Reflective teaching helps teachers to identify areas where they can improve their instructional strategies, classroom management techniques, assessment practices, and so on. It enables them to develop more effective teaching methods and helps to ensure that students are engaged and motivated in the learning process. The second benefit is it helps to promote professional growth. You can simply begin with a reflective journal and write down your thoughts after each session. It enhances innovation. Take a few minutes to assess your teaching after your lesson. Make short plans to improve your teaching methods. Prepare a needs assessment if necessary to provide room for further improvement. And it also facilitates teaching. Create a safe and secure classroom setting. Reflective practice will ensure that each student is benefiting from the learning experience. Boosts teacher-student relationship. By cultivating positive individual relationship with your students, teachers will also really begin to enjoy teaching and students will become motivated to learn in the learning environment. Then the fifth point is the benefit is to make your lessons livelier and more interesting. Teachers can implement some reflective teaching strategies to troubleshoot and liven up their classrooms where students actively contribute to the class. You can start your classes with a refresher session through a game or a competition, or get a recap of what was taught in the earlier classes. And not only this jogs a memory, it also makes the class lively, fun, and engaging. Students are more likely to perform better if they are allowed to actively ask questions or give feedback on the information they are learning. As a teacher, you also have a unique opportunity to hear about new perspectives from your students. Enhances problem solving. As we all know, students are of different degrees of learning. For example, they are not of the same level. So, learning to solve problems and meet challenges effectively and efficiently is it is of utmost importance. Reflective teaching practice allows teachers to devise strategies and map out personal techniques for their struggling students. It also incites your creativity and problem solving skills. The last point here is boost classroom participation. Within the classroom environment, students feel free to participate in open discussions with the teacher or even between themselves, in pairs or in groups. As a teacher, this can help you to prepare your students for the outside world and also allow them to critically interact with more respect for cultural differences, both inside and outside the classroom setting. Now, let us look at the benefits of reflective learning for students. Reflective learning offers many benefits for students. Number one, improves student performance. Reflection encourages students to assume responsibility for their learning. Reflection can improve performance, memory, and their motivation levels. It can be a part of a strategy to engage with classmates and develop fruitful relationships with teachers and classmates. Point number two is it boosts class engagement. They can use reflective practices to improve their performance in different subjects by writing a reflective learning diary to note down key theories, formulas, lessons, or keep a log of what they have learned, and so on. It is very important to note down areas of difficulty. For teachers, these reflective learning diaries provide valuable insights into what works well and what does not work in your teaching techniques and lessons. So, the third point is provide productive feedback for teachers. The students can provide productive feedback for their teachers by using their reflective learning diary to express their ideas or suggestions. Students understand difficult topics if they are active in their learning process. By providing such important feedback, they feel that they have a say in what they are learning. Helps to develop critical thinking and coping skills. For students, it helps a lot because they can help improve their skills by solving problems and challenges. Most students face many different challenges in their attempts to learn new concepts, lessons, subjects, etc. For instance, when faced with problems or questions related to coursework, students can formulate and note down the issue and then search for creative solutions, or ask a classmate or a friend, or even approach the teacher during her free time. By noting down troublesome areas, they will be freer to learn and concentrate on finding the appropriate solutions. It enhances student motivation. Motivation is the motor of our classrooms. It is also very important for students. Students who lack motivation can exhibit poor performance and encounter problems with learning acquisition. This can sometimes lead to absence and bad behavior, such as overall indifference or skipping a few classes here and there. For students who lack motivation, reflective learning practices can encourage them to face and overcome their learning issues and problems. The last point here is it improves overall effectiveness. Teachers who encourage students to form learning groups may find that overall experience is more effective. Learning groups are effective to share. Learning groups are effective because they create peer forums to share thoughts, process new information, and encourage interaction in a controlled learning environment. This type of activity enhances the development of critical thinking and analytical skills. Now, let us look at the research behind the reflective practice. The reflective process encourages you to work with others as you can share best practices and draw on support from others. Ultimately, reflection makes sure all students learn more effectively as learning can be tailored to them. Educational researchers have long promoted the importance of reflecting on practice to support student learning and staff development. There are many different models of reflective practice. However, they all share the same basic aim: to get the best results from the learning for both the teacher and the students. Each model of reflection aims to unpick learning to make links between the doing and the thinking. Reflection is a basic part of teaching and learning. It aims to make you more aware of your professional knowledge and action by challenging assumptions of everyday practice and critically evaluating practitioners' own responses to practice situations. Finlay in 2008 adds up to this and says reflective practice is learning through and from experience towards gaining new insights of self and practice. Now, let us look at the reflective cycle, the first cycle. Here, as you can see in the table, the process of reflection is a cycle which needs to be repeated. Starts with teach, then you self-assess the effect your teaching has had on learning. You consider new ways of teaching which can improve the quality of learning. You try these ideas in practice and repeat the process. The process goes on. So this is the reflective practice. Now when we move on to Kolb's experiential learning cycle, David Kolb, an educational researcher, developed a 4-stage reflective model. Kolb's learning cycle that was introduced in 1984 highlights reflective practice as a tool to gain conclusions and ideas from an experience. The aim is to take the learning into new experiences, completing the cycle. Kolb's cycle follows 4 stages. First, the teachers have a concrete experience. This means experiencing something new for the first time in the classroom. The experience should be an active one, and it has to be used to test out new ideas and teaching methods. This is followed by observation of the concrete experience and then reflecting on the experience. Here, the strengths and weaknesses, the strengths of the experience and areas of development are to be considered. Teachers should make a note and understand what helped students' learning and what hindered it. This should lead to the formation of abstract concepts. Teachers should do this by making links between what they have done, what they already know, and what they need to learn. They should modify these ideas or devise new approaches based on what they have learned from their observations and wider research. The final stage of the cycle is when the abstract concepts are made concrete as they use these to test ideas in future situations, resulting in new experiences. The ideas from the observations and conceptualizations are made into active experimentation here, and they are implemented into future teaching. This cycle is then repeated with this new method. So the method continues and there are only 4 stages. Now, when we move on to Gibbs' reflective cycle, The theoretical approach of reflection as a cyclical model was further developed by Gibbs in 1998. This model is based on a 6-stage approach, leading from a description of the experience through to conclusions and considerations for future events. While most of the core principles are like Gibbs' model is broken down further to encourage the teacher to reflect on their own thoughts and feelings. Gibbs' model is an effective tool to help you reflect after the experience, and it is a useful model if you are new to reflection, as it is broken down into clearly defined sections. Now let us look into each section in detail. In the first part, description, you will describe what happened without judgment or analysis. When you move on to feelings, describe how you felt, what you were thinking, and how you feel now, again without judgment or analysis. Number 3 is evaluation. Evaluate everything that happened, for example, by asking questions to yourself: what went well, what went badly. It is also important to consider areas needed for development and things that did not work out as initially planned. This evaluation should consider both the teacher's learning and the student's learning. Now we come to the 4th step, that is the analysis. Analyze the situation to try and make sense of everything that happened. Now, when we move on to the conclusion, draw conclusions based on the information that you generated so far. Start with general conclusions, then move on to specific ones. For example, you can start by forming general conclusions about how students reacted, and then move on from more specific conclusions about what means for the type of situation that you are in. You should understand how to improve and have some ideas on how to base this on a wider research. The last step is the action plan. During this final stage, figure out what you're going to do differently next time, based on everything that you have learned. For example, if you realize that things went badly because you have made a certain mistake, figure out how you're going to act in the future to avoid making that mistake again. Now, create a step-by-step plan for the new learning experience and identify what is to be kept, what is to be developed, and what is to be done differently. The action plan might also outline the next steps needed to overcome any barriers. For example, enrolling on a course, or observing another colleague, or getting a critical friend talk about your class, or anything as such. In Gibbs' model, the first 3 sections are concerned with what happened. What happened? Description, feelings, and evaluation. All the 3 steps are concerned with what happened. The final 3 steps, that is the analysis, conclusion, and action plan, relate to making sense of the experience and how you as a teacher can improve on the situation. Now, a recap of the 3 learning styles. By following any of the 4 above models of reflection, you will have a questioning approach to your teaching. You will consider why things are as they are, or how they could be. You will consider the strengths and areas of development on your own practice, questioning why learning experience might be this way, and consider how to develop them. As a result, what you do in the classroom will be carefully planned, informed by research and previous experience, and focused with logical reasons. All these models stress the importance of repeating the cycle to make sure knowledge is secure and progression is continued. Now, let me just focus on the types of reflection. A distinction can be made between the 3 types of reflection. Based on this distinction, there are 3 main types of reflection. The first one is the anticipatory reflection. It is a reflection that's performed before an event occurs. You anticipate. For example, this type of reflection can involve asking yourself what might happen, what challenges you are likely to face, how should you respond, and what you can do to prepare. Now, the second one is reflection in action and reflection on action. Another approach to reflection is the work of Sean. He distinguishes reflection in action and reflection on action. Reflection in action, as you can see, is reflecting as something happens. Consider the situation, decide how to act, and act immediately. And reflection on action is after something happens. Reconsider the situation. Think about what needs changing for the future. Reflection in action is reflection during the doing stage. That is, reflecting on the incident which can still benefit the learning. This is carried out during the lesson, rather than reflecting on how you would do things differently in the future. This is an extremely efficient method of reflection, as it allows you to react and change an event at the time it happens. Reflection in action allows you to deal with surprising incidents that may happen in a learning environment. It allows you to be responsible and resourceful, drawing on your own knowledge and allowing you to apply it to new experiences. It also allows for personalized learning rather than using preconceived ideas about what you should do in a particular situation. You decide what works best at that time for that unique experience and student. Now, reflection on action, on the other hand, involves reflecting on how practice can be developed after the lesson has been taught. Sean recognizes the importance of reflecting back in order to discover how our knowing in action may have contributed to an unexpected outcome. Reflection on action means you reflect after the event on how your knowledge of previous teaching may have directed you to the experience you had. Reflection on action should encourage ideas on what you need to change for the future. You can carry out reflection on action outside the classroom where you consider the situation again. This requires a deeper thought, for example, as to why the students did not understand the topic. It encourages you to consider causes and options, which should be informed by a wider network of understanding from research. Now, while reflecting on feedback, follow these three stages, because feedback is designed to help you to identify your own strengths and weaknesses. It can help you improve your work by building up positive comments and using critical ones to inform changes. Therefore, feedback forms a critical role in your learning and helps you to improve. Reflecting on your feedback should follow the three stages of reflection as stated in the slide. The first thing is, what should I do with the feedback? Identifying the main points of the feedback is the first stage, and it is called the descriptive stage of reflection. Try to identify the main points of the feedback. What does it say? Can you break it down into main points or areas of improvement? You may find keeping all your feedback in one place, and it helps as it makes it easier to look back and identify all the common mistakes. Now, move on to the second stage, the critical thinking stage of reflection. How do you feel about the feedback? What are you particularly proud of? Is there anything that you are disappointed by? Are there any points where you need further clarification from your lecturer or your co-worker or your head teacher? Finally, there is the future focused stage of reflection. How will this feedback influence you complete your next assignment or your next lesson? What will you do? Will you do the same or will you do it differently? So these, you may find it helpful to put together an action plan ready when you begin your next teaching session. Now, how to encourage reflective teaching practices in others? To encourage teaching practices, to encourage others to engage in teaching reflective practice, you can start by doing the following. First, explain what reflective practice is. Explain why reflective practice is beneficial to teachers and students. And also explain how to engage in reflective practice. Now, the steps involved in practicing reflective practice. First, create an environment and help people engage in it. For example, some people might benefit from having someone to go with them through each stage of the reflection cycle, while others will benefit more from simply being shown how reflection works and then being left to reflect on their own. Alternatively, you can also guide people through reflective practice without fully explaining the concept to them. Finally, note that you should generally avoid forcing the reflection process or forcing people to confess what they have done wrong, since this can have an ineffective reflection and it will bring in increased stress in the teacher. For example, when people know that they will be graded based on their responses, during the reflection process, they might answer in a dishonest and strategic manner by giving responses that they think the person evaluating them wants to give. Accordingly, in cases where it is possible and beneficial, you should allow people to make their reflections private. In addition, you should also avoid sticking to a strict reflection template and instead allow people to engage in reflection in the way that best works for them. Now, if you are new to reflective practice, it will help to ask yourself the following questions. Number one, reacting. How will I decide what area of my practice I need to focus on? Will this be decided by looking at data? Or is it an aspect of the curriculum which determines the learner's performance? Number two, recording, logging your reflections. How will I assess my performance? Will this take the form of observation, discussion, or shared planning? Or how will I record this? Will it be recorded by myself, a peer, or a student? And how will I log this? What documents will I use to record my reflections? For example, a journal or a journal or a notebook or a form provided by your school or institution or your head teacher. And when will I log this? There are different questions that crop up in our mind. So should I log these straight after the lesson or during the lesson or before the lesson? How often will you record these reflections? So these are the questions that crop up when we think of recording. Now, the third step is revising, adapting your teaching by trying new strategies. What will I change or adapt? This could be a whole task or something specific about a task. Some practical ideas including change the task from independent work to paired work, adding a scaffold to a challenging task, provide step-by-step instructions, and make activities time-based. So the next step is reworking, action plan of how you can put these ideas in place in a practical way. How will I put this in place? Consider what you will need to do before and during the lesson to make sure your changes happen. What will the students be doing differently to make sure that there is a progress? And what materials do I need? Should I revise my ideas? Some practical examples include colored pens, large paper, handouts, etc. And the last point is reassessing, understanding how these new strategies affected learning. How successful were the new strategies? After you deliver your lesson, consider how engaged the students were. How well did they understand this time? What changed? Consider the following ideas of potential change, for example, delivery, planning, and assessment. Now, there are 8 ideas for reflective teaching. Number 1 is journaling, which means encourage teachers to keep a reflective journal where they can write down their thoughts, observations, and experiences. This can help them identify patterns and areas where they need to improve. Number 2 is collaborative reflection. Encourage teacher to engage in reflective conversations with their colleagues. This can be done during team meetings or one-to-one conversations, and it helps to share ideas and perspectives leading to collective growth. Video analysis. Encourage teachers to record themselves during the session and then watch the video back. This can help them identify areas where they need to improve and also allows for self-reflection. Peer observation is the 4th idea, and it encourages teachers to observe each other's lessons and then provide feedback. This can help teachers gain new perspectives and identify areas of improvement, if any. Action research is one of the important steps here, and it encourages teachers to engage in action research projects where they can investigate an area of their practice and reflect on the results. Mentoring is Another idea wherein it helps teachers to encourage themselves to seek out mentorship from experienced colleagues who can provide guidance and support. This can help teachers develop their skills and gain new insights. Self-reflection prompts provide teachers with self-reflection. It helps teachers to think deeply about their practice. For example, what did I learn from this lesson? What could I have done differently in the class, etc. And you can also make hot notes on the spot. Like during the lesson, if you want to make any notes, you can just do that on hot notes or a sticky notes, and make sure that you look into it later. Now, a quick recap of the points covered. To recap, here are the key points. Reflective teaching is a process where teachers think over their teaching ideas and practices, analyzing how something was taught and how the practice might be improved or changed for better learning outcomes. Reflective teaching is important for teachers because it helps them to learn from their experiences, improve their pedagogical skills, to deepen their subject knowledge, develop their professional identity, and enhance their student outcomes. Reflective teaching can help teachers master the craft of teaching by improving their teaching effectiveness, increasing their student engagement and motivation, better understanding their students' needs and learning styles, and fostering their personal and professional growth. Some strategies for becoming a reflective teacher include setting goals and reflecting on progress, gathering feedback from students and colleagues, trying new teaching strategies, and reflecting on their effectiveness, and reflecting on successes and failures. Here are some captivating quotes to motivate each one of us to practice reflective teaching throughout our journey of teaching. The more reflective you are, the more effective you are. Teachers who regularly reflect on their practice improve their practice. Reflective practice is the key to transformational learning. Teaching is not about what we do, it is about who we are and who we want to become. We do not learn from experience, we learn from reflecting on experience. The only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing. In order to teach well, we must first reflect on our own learning. The best teachers are those who show you where to look, but don't tell you what to see. Let's have a quick look at the references. Now, as we come to the end of this presentation on reflective teaching, I hope that you have gained a deeper understanding of this practice and how it can make you a more effective and confident teacher. Remember, reflection is not a one-time event, but rather an ongoing process that requires commitment and effort. By engaging in reflective practice, you can continually refine and improve your teaching, help your students to learn and grow. I encourage you to take the principles you have learned today and apply them in your teaching practice and continue to seek out opportunities for growth and learning. Thank you for joining me today, and I wish you all the very best in your teaching journey.
Thank you very much, Beena ma'am. And it has been a really insightful session for all of us. You have actually nailed the concept of reflective teaching practices, starting with the basic concept of what is reflective teaching, how it is identified, what are the stages, what are the definitions, how one can effectively or how can one put into practice the reflective teachings, how we can learn from reflective teachings. The last one especially I liked is something like knowingly, unknowingly, we always put up reflective teaching into practice. But if knowing reflective teaching and then putting it into practice makes a lot of difference, because we'll be able to maintain a journal of what we are observing. So really good, insightful session, Beena ma'am. There are a few questions which I would wish to take up.
Okay.
There is a question. From AD Mansoor, how does reflective teaching for teachers boost classroom?
Boost classroom management or boost classroom teaching?
Boost classroom management, yeah.
Okay. Reflective teaching helps students to involve in a better manner, because they are able to learn from what we reflect in our classes. They get a chance to talk to the teacher. They are given freedom to talk to their peers, and they learn and they do better in the classrooms. They feel free to discuss their issues, and if there is an area that they are not able to clearly understand, they can revisit the area and they can ask their peers or their friends or even the same teacher to get back to the same point and explain the same thing once again, so that it is clear. So there is a, in even though it is a classroom setting, I understand that there is a free, like, that we give them an atmosphere wherein they can tackle their issues then and there, or even at a later time. So reflective learning plays a very key role uh, in the part of students as well as the teachers.
Thank you, ma'am.
We also
Another
learn in
question.
between. Yes.
There's another question, that would you illustrate reflection of teaching and reflection on teaching in self-assessment? Illustration of reflection on teaching,
yes.
and reflection of teaching in self-assessment.
Yes. Reflection in teaching is an ongoing process when the class is going on, for example. But reflection on teaching happens after the class gets over. And I had clearly given the 1 second. Let me just go back to the slide.
Great. One comment was there.
Yes.
Can you explain and exemplify abstract conceptualization in little more detail?
Okay, 1 second. Yes. It's from the COLBS experiential learning cycle. And here, actually, the first step is where you talk about the experience, and it's a concrete experience for every teacher. The experience should be an active one, and it should have new ideas and teaching methods. Then we move on to the reflective observation, wherein the strength of the experience in the area of development are considered. Now we move on to the third step, that is the abstract conceptualization, wherein teachers will have abstract concepts, and they should make links between what they have done in the class and what they already know and what they need to learn. That is the area that is very important, and it plays a key role in the career of a teacher. And another thing is, teachers should do this because they should modify their ideas or devise new approaches based on what they have learned from their observations and wider research. And even if when they visit other teachers, or even during peer learning or peer observation, they learn a lot, and they have to use this abstract ideas and link it with what they know, what they have done, what they already know, and what they need to learn. So it actually plays an important role in the in the formation of abstract concepts.
Thank you, ma'am. I think that were the few questions that we wish to cover it up. This has been really an insightful session so far, and I'm sure the audience, the eminent educators present today, have learned from this particular session and will put reflective teaching into practices. There is one query from Monica Malhotra. We'll just take one or two more. Monica, I'll just unmute you. Can you unmute yourself and try it? I think it's by mistake. So I think that's all for today's session. Ram sir, do we have anything to be shared with the audience?
Yes, sir. Yes. Just one second.
So there is an issue with the link of feedback link, and it has been resolved now. So the participants are kindly requested to check it again with the same link. It will be able to work.
Ma'am, can you stop your sharing? Sir, is my screen visible?
Yes.
Okay, so please note down the next ELTAI webinar on the life skills in the classroom and beyond, guidelines for the educators. So please join for the next webinar. This is a poster of next webinar.
It's on 28th of May.
Yeah, it's on 28th of May 2023.
Yeah. So another interesting session from ELTAI India, life skills in the classroom and beyond, guidelines for educators. So the next session announcement is here.
Just is my screen visible, sir?
Yes.
Okay. So also you can join for our 17th International and 53rd Annual Conference of ELTAI, and it's on Indian ELT, English for Global Citizenship, Multiply Teaching, Acts and Learning Experience, 11 and 14 October 2023, and it is hosted by the Uttaranchal University, Dehradun, Uttarakhand. So you can join for the conferences. All the details are available on the website.
I think it will also be shared with the respective chapters, and the members would eventually come to know about this announcements.
Yes.
So we come to a conclusion, Ram sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you very much, Dr. Vishal Varia, sir, and Beena ma'am for joining with us for this webinar. Thank you. Thank you, participants, for joining the webinar. We'll see you in the next webinar. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Beena ma'am.
Yeah.
It was a
Have
wonderful
a nice
session.
evening, sir. Thank you,
Yes.
sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Participants can go through the link